last command I was at, we had our chief was really adamant about pushing the SkillBridge programs. Uh, we were a CB unit for the Navy, so we do construction. And with the SkillBridge being all about increasing the trades, he really pushed that out there to get us into the civilian life with kind of a step up. Having the knowledge from the military of doing the trades, then being able to step into the civilian world and transitioning from that military construction mentality to a civilian construction mentality.
How different is that? Talk to me about the differences.
It's really different. With the military, it's all expedited. As fast as we can, making things happen with little to nothing. And now on no inspections either. On the civilian side, it's all about the quality, the inspections, dealing with clients, which is something completely different.
Yeah, and talk to me about your military experience.
I did 8 years in the active, and then last year I had switched over to the reserves when we moved here to Corpus. So that was nice.
So Navy for
yes.
active, okay.
Navy Seabees. As a builder. That was my rate.
Gotcha. So you've been in Corpus the whole time, or?
No, so I did 5 years in Fort Winnie, California with Naval Mobile Construction Battalion there. And then I transitioned to a self-help maintenance unit in Virginia. So out in Norfolk area.
Gotcha. So
did a couple years there.
Take me through that time period whenever you were looking into SkillBridge and you first heard from James. I mean, talk to me about how you guys kind of met and that experience.
Yeah, so I originally wanted to do a SkillBridge program up in Arkansas where my family's at. And my wife was very, very adamant about coming down south where her family was. So I told her if she'd find any of the SkillBridge programs that was kind of what I wanted to do, management level or, just construction in general. And she found Peer Tree, and James, she put in like the resume package that you had to submit with the SkillBridge program to the company, and James was the first employer that called me within 30 minutes of that going in. Everybody else would take, a day, your average timelines, but he was very quick to get with me. That made me want to come here more, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, talk to me about your emotions, man. I mean, you put in the application, 30 minutes later, he's hitting you up. Talk to me about, were you like, man, this is kind of fast, or tell me how you felt.
It was a big relief, honestly. Yeah, when you're getting out of the military, it's a lot of emotions. You're not sure what's going to happen. You had a steady check for me, 8 years. I had a steady check every 2 weeks. And then I'm getting out, and it's like, what's our next step? How am I going to support my family? And then utilizing the SkillBridge program, you have 6 months of that steady check still. And you have an employer that you're working for. So you kind of get that sense of security that, if you go there, you like the job, you perform at the job, then you'll most likely get that job offer at the end. So it's just an easier way of transitioning than getting out and not having any opportunity.
Yeah, and as a veteran, what does that mean to you to have a program like that and guys like this, really backing you guys and being there for you?
Well, it means a lot. The biggest thing that most guys, including myself, that I've talked with about leaving the military is they miss that sense of camaraderie, right? And when you get with these SkillBridge companies and you end up getting employed by them, well, you're bringing more guys from the military in. So then you get to kind of have that same sense of camaraderie and brotherhood. Everybody kind of has the same experience. They know how you're feeling. They know what the VA is. They know all the ins and outs of what these guys are going through. And it really helps because having guys that have already done the process in the same company that you're in, they can kind of help assist you get through these things. Dealing with the VA and your appointments, and sometimes, the employers don't always like having you leave 2 or 3 times a week to go to a VA appointment. The SkillBridge program, because you're already being paid by the military, gives you the flexibility to do that kind of thing.
You're on this project now over at the church, and you see Benjamin, Aiden, and Kevin. Talk to me about how well you've meshed with those guys because you can relate so much to them. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, we mesh very well. We all have the same kind of mentality. We all use the same kind of lingo. It's a whole different language, really. And like Aiden and myself, we're both in the kind of construction world aspect of the military, so all the hand signs and just things like that generally kind of gives him that sense of like not too lost, you know. It makes the project kind of go along a little faster. Everybody's got that same mentality of get things done, the same mentality of, you know, if you're standing around, you probably shouldn't be. Just that whole military mindset, it still carries through.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say to other veterans, active or, you know, in the reserves, that are maybe interested in SkillBridge, but maybe they're like, I don't know if it's for me, but they kind of want to? I mean, what would you say to those guys?
Well, I'd say just take the chance on it. That 6 months of you're still getting paid from the military, and if worse comes to worse and you don't like the company you're with, you still have that time of being in a location that you want to be at to make connections, to get other job offers, to, you know, really set your family up and set your roots in while you got income coming in still, instead of getting out not having any income set up and now you're living off savings, or, you know, you're trying to do your VA stuff while you're trying to work. It gives you that time frame you really need to adjust.
Gotcha. So I just want to make sure I got this right. So you go to SkillBridge, they set you up with somebody that, you know, is a like-minded job or a career, right? You do 6 months, it's like a tryout, right? And then they see if they want to offer you the job afterwards, or correct me.
Yes, so how it works is there's a SkillBridge website that all branches go to. And then from there, you'll click the locations in which you want to be at. So you actually get to decide what location of the country you want to be. And then you'll see which employers have positions open. And from the website, you can contact, you drop your application in, and then it's up to the companies to respond to you. That's how that process works. And then they have programs that vary. I think the smallest ones are 4-week programs to 6-month programs. So, and then after you get accepted by the company, you get it sent to your command for your chain of command to approve it. Once your chain of command's approved it, it's pretty much solid. You're given orders, and your dates are set.
Gotcha. And you were saying that you have like it's like a tryout.
Yes.
During those times, right?
Yeah. So some companies will state that they'll hire you, or, you know, they're open to possible employment, and some companies are not. And that's just something you need to look at. And normally they state that on the website as well. So before you really even get into talks, you kind of have a general idea of what you're getting into.
Gotcha. I believe this is my last question, but I think it was Benjamin that said he had no construction experience prior to coming to Maddalone. Is that him?
Yeah.
Okay. What does that say about, you know, Maddalone here hiring, taking a chance on someone like that? And now, I mean, you worked for him too. I mean, what does that say about him and the kind of company that he runs?
Well, taking these guys in, coming from the SkillBridge program means a lot, because a lot of these guys, it's their way out, right? And yeah, they might not know a lot about construction, but having the company that, you know, Maddalone Development, being willing to teach these guys these life skills is very important, and I think it helps veterans out all the time with it. Yeah. Having these guys give them skills that they can use in the civilian world is a big help up.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
I want to ask you, what made you interested in really learning more about SkillBridge and picking it up?
I first became aware of SkillBridge through my brother-in-law, Christian, who was working his way out of active military service after 10 years. And he was explaining to me the process he was going through of transitioning into civilian life. And it was a big process. And so he had said, James, you really want to connect and register with the military under this program called SkillBridge. And it's a way where you can bring in active duty military guys who are looking to successfully transition into civilian life.
Absolutely. And right now you have 4 guys, but do you have like maybe a guess of the amount of veterans that have come through the program so far?
That's a great question. So we started the program in 2022, and since 2022 through 2024, we've had about 10 military personnel join.
Yeah. So is there a common theme that you're seeing with these guys as far as work ethic and their drive? I mean, talk to me about that.
Yeah, so a common theme that I'm recognizing is that I think for clarity's purposes, we've had members from the Air Force, we've had Navy, we've had Army, we've had we've had Coast Guard. So we've had, every branch is a little different. The way they think, the way they troubleshoot's a little different. And so for us to see that, I never really thought that there were such differences with military branches, but there really are, the way they're taught and the way they're trained. And so one of the things I think I've noticed is that they're used to performing, obviously, military level, which is very different from commercial, right? And so we've had to kind of retrain them on the way to get something done in our scenario, right? Does that make sense?
Sure, absolutely.
So there's definitely some hinderers when they first join us, because they're used to either getting micromanaged by 4 different bosses, or they have to send information up the chain just to get a decision, and they got to go through 5 different people or 4 different people to get a decision made, and they got to wait for it to come back down. Whereas when they're working with a company like Nine, they just got to go to me, and I give them a yes, no, I give them direction, and we go. So it's very different in the beginning for them.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about specifically Benjamin. Again, this guy, you told me earlier, no experience in construction really, but he said he was willing.
Yeah.
And why take a chance on someone with no construction experience? Talk to me about that.
So one of the first things that I do when a SkillBridge applicant reaches out to me, I'll get the email directly, and I'll go through. The first thing I'll ask is send me your CV, send me your background. Let me know what your resume looks like. And so as I start to see what their capabilities are, I look to see if they're thinkers, if they've been a part of troubleshooting or complicated things before. With Benjamin is a air traffic controller. Now that is a high pressure position. That's a role that means you are critical thinking, you are troubleshooting, you're problem solving, you're mapping things out so that there's no fatalities, there's no casualties, there's no screw ups, right? A person like that, you could take and stick into a commercial construction, residential construction environment, and you can give them the tools that they need to excel. But you have to stick them with someone who's seasoned. You got to stick them with someone who can apprentice them. And that's the model that I use, is I stick them with a very seasoned veteran that works for me, who's had worked with me for quite a while, and I'll pair them up. And so that's how you can take someone who's a critical thinker, someone who can map things out, plan things out in their normal duties in the military, may not have done anything here on a construction site before, but if they're instructed properly, they will be able to execute it. And that's the cool thing, especially if they've seen it done, it was demonstrated, they'll be able to do it. And that's what I have seen with the military personnel, that if you give them good instruction and a good teacher, they'll be able to accomplish it.
So everyone that I spoke to today was super pumped about the project. Talk to me about, how did that come up as far as to PM calling you and the design, and just take me through a little crash course of how it all unfolded.
Yeah, so in reference to the New Life Church project, we're building one of the largest freestanding structures in the world that's rated for windstorm. And we're at about 170 by 195 footprint of a structural aluminum tent, right? When we say a tent, we all think, when I first heard about a tent, I said, that's not going to work. But once you see the engineering of this tent, this thing is very, very impressive. So to be one of a kind here in Corpus Christi, and for us to be the contractor who's awarded the contract, was very special, but also it was a big undertaking. And so our team had to engulf ourselves in the understanding. We've visited the manufacturer. We've really learned what it takes to design and then also to put these buildings up. But cost-wise, I don't want to say it's a 50% reduced cost from traditional construction, which would have been either tilt wall, a block, a metal frame, and red iron bolt-up construction for something as large as a 2,000, 2,200 seat sanctuary auditorium style. So it definitely was a very complicated project, still is, we're nearly there. But to be the company that's taking on this really is a privilege and a great honor. A lot of stress, but it's a great honor.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned 2,200 people, and the project's about $6 million, right?
Correct.
Talk to me about just, did PM want that tent design, or who came up with that? Was that you? I mean,
that's a great
talk
question,
to me about
that. From the design aspect of why going with a tent, that was one of the things that the pastor Mike Faylauer has experienced building one of these 20 years ago at another church that he was a part of, a growing church. And so this was one thing that the lead pastor, the client, made the decision to go with this structure. We all kind of scratched our heads a little bit just because we're very traditional with our construction methods, right? But I love the fact that it's outside the box, right? And it doesn't look like a traditional cathedral style church building. And so I think to me that was, I think that was very unique, kind of characteristic of how we see things in the world of we can be different, we can stand out with our structures as well as our message.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving back to the veterans, I just wanted to ask about that real quick. Are you going to continue to use SkillBridge in the future? I mean, do you see any reason to stop using them? Yeah,
it's a great question. So I have found that SkillBridge has brought a great asset to our company. And one of the reasons is it's bringing us capable people, though they may not have been in the trades prior. It's bringing people in that are saying, you know what, I want to do the trades. I'm a trades guy myself. I'm a carpenter by trade. I'm a builder. But we have the lack of trades in our community, not just here locally, but also regionally and nationally. And so trades is coming back. To think that, you know, a tradesman could start off in one of these trades, a carpenter, a plumber, electrician, and could be making 6 figures in 5 years is wild, right? And so because there's a vacuum right now for trades to bring people up and into the trades, because the older generation is aging out of the workplace, SkillBridge, the military, is really kind of honing in on let's get employers in, let's see how we can take our highly skilled, highly trained vets, bring them into the workplace. And so for me, in other trades, I highly recommend other construction companies. We also have a remodeling company, a residential remodeling company called Pure Tree Remodeling, that some of our SkillBridge guys have worked themselves through there. We have one there that's working in that side of the company as well, alongside of our normal regular guys. And so it really is, you know, a mechanic shop could sign up. You got to go through a vetting process. I mean, there's a big process with the military, a lot of red tape you got to get through, but it's worth it. So would I stop doing this? No. I've only had a couple guys, maybe, okay, of the 9, I think I had one guy that I wanted to send back, but I didn't. We worked through it. And I think that's the joy for 2025. I think we've got 2, maybe 3 guys slated to be joining us as of the new year already. So, and we'll probably get a couple more this year. It just depends on how well people know that the program's available for them to get in.
Gotcha. James, I got just a couple more questions. I know you mentioned you have a brother-in-law that was in the military, correct?
Yeah, correct.
On a personal level, why is it important for you to help out these veterans? Is it important to you? Is that a personal thing? I mean, talk to me about that.
Thinking about veterans, thinking about military, thinking about the wars, thinking about the great wars, World War I, World War II, all the conflicts that we've had, to think about how one of us, I've had family that has fought, that has served, that has died in the wars. To think about one person, I think the Bible says that no greater love that one has is to lay your life down for another. And to think about it, military guys, they lay their life down for another. People that they don't even know. Personally, they may not know them, but they're willing to take a bullet for them, for freedom, for standing up for our country, helping defend other nations that need help. And so when these guys come back, shame on us if we don't receive them back well. Like in our previous history in our country, many of these veterans, when they came back, they were not received well. They weren't. And shame on our generations that did that. When our guys come back, regardless of the politics attached to military conflicts and wars, we need to always take care of our own, because they sacrificed so that we can have what we have. One of the things that my mother and father did while they were traveling, they went to a site and they saw this memorial called the Veterans Memorial. And it was a place that people could go, like a park with park benches, and it was a pathway. And as they went, they saw these little memorials for every conflict and or war, every season, generation, if there was something. They had a memorial stone. They had the names of the people in that community that fought and gave their lives. And my parents came back and they said, you know what, we need that in our community. And this is in upstate New York. And that happened about 12 years ago, that first time. Within 8 years, took them 8 years, but we got our town, my hometown, to make a Veterans Memorial Park. Now, both my parents have since passed, but that vision to bring it to our hometown was realized, I think, 3 years after they had passed on. But that vision that our community needs to take hold of in caring for our veterans is huge. It's so important for a place where they can get together and just camaraderie, talk about what took place, because these guys, they don't talk about it. And we know when you don't talk about it, it festers inside, and then we feel isolated and feel alone. So I like what we offer. People are able to come in, they're able to work together. They're coming from different branches, different times served, and they can at least have some camaraderie. Even on our workplace, they're able to work together and still talk it out, flush it out. That's one of the greatest things they can do is work through things while they're gainfully employed and while they're gaining new skills. It's all fantastic.
Absolutely. Last question here, James. What would you say to other business owners, other companies that are on the fence about SkillBridge? They're interested, but they're on the fence. What's your message to those guys?
Yeah, there's no reason to be on the fence whether or not you should jump into the SkillBridge program and offer this back out to the vets. You get all the reward. You get all the reward. If you're willing to train people, that's the key thing. To expect someone to come in and be like, hey, there's going to be a perfect slot in, I don't have to train them. That's nonsense. Anybody you bring in, you're going to have to train them. The greatest thing is that up until the time lot, we've got a 6-month program. I know some have 1 month up to 6 months. We've qualified and elected for the 6-month program. We're able to train these guys in. And some of them, they want the training. They really want a good transition. And if you really want to retain them, you make the offer, right? And at that point, you've just got yourself a guy that was trained for 6 months, right? Where the military paid them. That's a win-win. And if they decide to move on, so what? Let them move on. Bless them as they go. Receive them. Hey, we're so glad you're here. And as they leave to the next phase of their life, some of them want to go take the GI Bill. They want to go to college, right? They want to maybe transition to another form of employment. Maybe they didn't like it so much. You know what? This really isn't for me. But at least you created that environment for them to excel, and you excel as well. Look we're having a meeting about it right now.
Dude, this is awesome. Just to make sure I'm clear. So if they're in the SkillBridge program, the military pays them, not you. They're not on your payroll.
That's right.
Wow.
That's huge.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Okay.
Oh, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
It's a win-win. It's a fantastic program.
And
it really is.
As far as you know, is it competitive, that pay that the military pays them? Like, is it what your normal guys make? Is it less? I mean, can you talk to me about that?
The like any type of offer, if you see someone that you bring them through your program, and you see the quality, the character, what they can output, what their capabilities are, and you make them an offer based on your market, right? What people are employed at, if it's 50,000, 60, 70, 80,000, depends on what you do and what you normally would pay whom you would hire, right? So you work through and you negotiate that with the applicant, with the guy that you've brought on, but you don't start talking about money until it's time to review whether or not you're going to make an offer, which is usually a month prior to the end date.
Okay, I see. So the military pays them what they ever have set, I guess.
Up to the 6 months.
Up to 6 months.
And their last day is basically them working their way out of the system. Which is, there's a lot of visits to the hospitals. Like they got to basically like work their way out, and it's a process. So we have to work with that, right? So you have to have an understanding. You have to understand that, one thing I recognize when the military guys showed up, say, all right, hey, you're accepted. I said, when will you start? When's your day that you can be released and sent here? And you get the date, and then from there to maybe it was like 3 months earlier, say, hey, I'll be there on January 1st. They may not contact you. They may literally just show up January 1st. And you're like, you're here? And he's like, yes, sir, I'm here, reporting for duty. I'm like, all right, great. You didn't call me. No, sir. We said to be here. I'm here.
Awesome.
It's pretty funny.
Heck yeah.
I'm like, dude, you didn't talk to me? I said, that's going to change. We're going to be communicating like crazy. So those are just the little things.
Gotcha. Well,